Now, the local beverages industry has caught the attention of international markets over the past few years. We've seen a 13.6 billion rand investment from Heineken and Varun Beverages Limited's 3 billion rand acquisition of Bevco. These instances just highlighting confidence in the market. And joining us to discuss all the moves at play in that sector is the sector head of CPG Beverages and MNC, Brendan Grundlingh. Thank you so much for your time, Brendan. Let's actually start off with you laying down the table for us in terms of the beverage industry's contribution to the South African economy and how much potential it possesses.
Thanks, Sonata. Yes, look, it really is a large contributor to the economy. I mean, primary and secondary. I think, if you look at it from a primary perspective, it makes up about 5% of GDP to South Africa. But from a secondary and primary perspective, it makes up roughly $20 billion. And that obviously includes kind of the manufacturing, the packaging, the distribution and the labor elements that stretch right across the entire industry.
Now, what beverage types dominate the industry in South Africa? And have those remained steady at least in the last decade, or have we seen a few shifts?
Yeah, so Nati, you reminded me, I think it is a Thursday evening, so I think I better start with the alcohol side of things first, because that is the largest contributor. Obviously, within that, it really is the beer players. So the large beer players still contribute the largest to that sector, followed by spirits and then RTDs. But I must say that the big innovation really has come through in the flavored alcoholic beverage space and the ready-to-drink space. That's really where the two large beer players in South Africa, which are really Heineken and AB InBev, have really started to push into what they call beyond beer and really innovate in that space.
Beyond beer, and does that really speak to the kind of evolving generational shifts and consumer habits that we are seeing there, and really how the market is responding to that?
No, that's exactly it. I think there's a couple of key themes that we're seeing there really that are playing out. Number one is that there's a much younger demographic and a change in kind of the consumer patterns of the demographic that is consuming, which means that those players are looking for something that's often lighter in alcohol and also more sessionable. So that means kind of that you can have one or two or maybe three or four drinks per occasion. And what that means is that, consumers are really looking for convenience. They're driving self-expression through what they drink. And then also increasing the consumption occasions, whether it's around, family events, sporting events, those type of things. But again, I think, it'd be remiss of me to kind of then not also just really highlight the innovation that's actually coming from the local players. So while we have, the big two players really in that space, there's a lot of unbelievable little local brands that have entered the market and really driven by this innovation in South Africa, which is really exciting to see.
All right. How has the beverage industry, because obviously now as we're talking about changing consumer shifts and all these, generational shifts as well, we also have to talk about pockets, because people's pockets are not the same, at least in the last 2 years, Brendan. How has the beverage industry fared during the tough financial times and obviously looking at, how demand has responded to the tough economic times, and also the ability for these companies to be able to recover their costs through selling prices?
Absolutely. So I think it's key to understand the kind of three themes that really play out between the alcohol and non-alcoholic space, as well as the spirit space, which kind of sits there.
Yeah.
And that is number one, premiumization. Premiumization is a massive theme that we're seeing play out globally, but also very particularly in South Africa and Africa. The second big theme is affordability, which is kind of what we're speaking to. But within that, and in South Africa, there's this understanding of perceived affordability. So really what that means is that the beverage players are really trying to build brands that effectively come off as a premium brand, but in the affordable space. So that the consumer has this perceived affordable product. And then the most important thing, which kind of talks to costs and how they've had to manage their distribution element, which really is availability. The smaller players as well as the bigger players really start winning when they have product available to these consumers, and that really has been another big theme that we've seen in the space.
All right. I mean, obviously, every industry, with every industry, there's pressure to kind of move towards the transition of being greener. Are consumers starting to demand for the beverage industry to kind of follow in that same direction? And is the industry appropriately responding to the environmental shifts that we are seeing economically?
I think it's nice that you kind of highlight both those sides, the industry and the consumer. I think the consumer often is not as focused as they should be on that environmental element. But I think, when you start to notice kind of the plastic wastage that does often present itself as a result of this industry, and there it's really non-alcoholic beverages, which is a big component, you'll understand why the industry has made exceptional strides at trying to deal with this. And that really comes from, a couple of things, particularly from an environmental perspective. A lot of these larger players really do have initiatives that roll up to the head office in which they try and kind of monitor, water wastage, plastic usage, and obviously reusability of their packaging. So it really is a big element that we're also seeing within the banking industry. Sustainability linked finance behind these type of initiatives is one big growing factor for us as well.
All right. Well, we do have to leave the conversation there. Brendan, thank you so much for your time and for your insights there on the South African beverage industry. That was Brendan Grundlingh from RMB.